this weekend, but I appreciate it allowing us to have that time with our family, and we're going to be talking about that. We're in a series called Bless This Home and talking about families, but before I get to that part, I want to just, while we're finishing up offering and finishing up worshiping that way, if you're new to this church or if you're here for the first time, one of the things that we've been talking about, you probably haven't been, if you've been here at all or if you've watched any of our social media sites, you know that we are launching our fall grow groups, and you're like, yes, we know. Grow groups, we get it. But I am really, really excited about the groups that we're offering. And one of the things that we are doing missionally for our church and vision for our church, we've been walking through a vision process with a group of people since January. And we're very, very close to rolling that out and kind of sharing that with a large group. We're finishing up the last piece of our vision and where our church is headed and where Salem Grace is headed. And part of looking back, we're actually going to celebrate too here in a couple weeks. We're going to celebrate our 60th anniversary as a church, which is pretty amazing. I don't know if you realize that, but that's coming up too. Really excited about looking, but when you look at where this church has come from and where we are, and it's part of our vision, one of the things that we know that we want to accomplish is spiritual formation. And what I mean by that is really growing people to be Christ-like followers, and that means you. It's all of us becoming a little bit more Christ-like. And we believe, I sincerely believe that circles are, if in order to do that, you cannot accomplish that just sitting in a row on Sunday morning. That type of growth does not come from Sunday morning and sitting in a row, and we firmly believe that circles are better than rows. And the way you do that is you get engaged into a grow group. And so what I wanted to do this morning is I wanted to have every grow group leader come up here and stand on stage, but I don't have time to do that. But if you're leading a grow group this morning and you're here, would you stand up? Just stand up real quick. If you were leading a grow group, woo, yes, thank you. No, you can clap for them. You guys can sit down. They said yes. They took we just came out of our Say Yes campaign, and they said yes to lead a grow group. And on your seat, your blue puffy this morning, you've got a catalog of grow groups, and there are about 20 to choose from. And I'm a little bit stressed out because I would love to go to every one of them. I mean, I'm really excited about when I look at these. I'm like, oh, that's such a good one. I wish I could go to that one. Oh, I would love to go to that group. I guarantee you will find a place to fit in one of these grow groups if you would just make that step and make that commitment. And part of our vision and part of the vision of this church is to spiritually grow ourselves and to become more and more and more like Christ-like followers. And now I know some of you are like, yes, I don't care how much you talk about it. That's just awkward. I'm not going to sit in a group with people. It's just weird. I'm going to get freaked out. They're going to hold my hand and want to pray. I promise you, they won't do that. They won't. It may be a little bit weird at first, but you'll get past that. And I promise you, you will enjoy it. People that I've talked to and spoken to that have been engaged in a grow group, I guarantee most of them have come out of the other side of that and saying, man, I was really nervous to go. I thought it was going to be super awkward, and it was, but I'm really, really glad I went. And so please take a moment. We've got, I would love to go through and just spend time this morning. What we're going to ask you to do, like Cheryl said, if you get bored with my preaching here in a minute, then pick up the catalog. If you get nothing out of this service today, we want you to try to be engaged. Give it a try. Give it a shot. If you've never been to one and you've never, Faith 101 is a great place to start to encourage people to jump in there, but you can jump into any time. And we really only do this a couple of times a year where it's easy to kind of get involved in because everybody's going through the awkwardness themselves. But we would like to have about 80% of our regular attenders engaged in a small group somewhere this next few weeks. And I promise you will not be disappointed if you jump into one of those and take that step. So please say yes to that. I know we came out of our Say Yes campaign as well. And what we'd like for you to do is just some instructions. I think there's a card. Is there a card? I think there are cards on your seats as well. If you will take one of those cards and fill those out, if you have questions, Cheryl's going to be in the back. I'll probably hang out back there some. there are going to be guys standing here with buckets so you can just chuck those cards in a bucket. And I promise you, somebody will reach out to you and give you the details about the group that you're in sign for. If you have questions about which ones you should get into, or do I need a lot of Bible knowledge to get in? No. I mean, there's really, I believe, for the first time, we have something for everyone this go around in our grow groups. And we really are encouraging you to be a part of that and start growing in circles better than rows. And like I said, we just came out of our Say Yes campaign. There's still an opportunity for you to serve, too, at our church. I know Cheryl talked about it, one of the ways, and I'm not going to beat that horse anymore, but Crave, and it's in your book. What's that? There's a paper? I'm getting cues. Please hold up the cue card. What is it? Food team. Yeah. Okay, so there's a food team card in your bulletin this morning, and if you'd love to be on that food team for our Crave and our Grace Extreme and our Youth Loop kids, and to invest in the lives of our children and our youth and our junior high and senior high youth that we have, I'm telling you, this is a church that's passionate about that age group, and we pour into them every week. And you can be a part of that by helping us really support our food ministry that we have with those particular groups. But so lots of ways that you can get involved. If you are here this morning and you leave here and say, well, I would like to go to that church, but it's just so hard to get connected. I hear that. That's your fault. I don't want to hear it out of anybody anymore. I'll take my belt off right now. But I do not want to hear that from anybody, because you make the choice of how connected you want to be. We're making opportunities for you to do that, and hopefully you will find it rewarding and beneficial in your life. But we are in a 4-week series called Bless This Home, and we've been talking about, I think when I kicked this series off, and Pastor Mark did a great job last week, but I kicked it off, we talked about those people that are hungering and thirsting after righteousness. And I think I asked everybody in your home who would love their home to be blessed. Most people said yes. There were a few that said no, I would love for my home to be cursed, because they wouldn't raise their hand in church. But we are talking about that, and Pastor Mark did a great job last week sharing about the pure in heart, and really talking about what it means to be, and we're really taking a look at in Matthew chapter 5, where Jesus came off of the Sermon on the Mount, and he gave this what is known as the Beatitudes, and it's really just blessed are this or blessed are those. It's the blesseds in Matthew chapter 5, and so really kind of digging into that and seeing what Jesus told us about our homes and how our homes can be blessed, and how we as individuals can be blessed. And I think that so what I want to talk about this morning is peace in your home. Is there peace in your home? And I think we're just living in a culture and in a day where most of our homes are characterized probably more by conflict than they are by peace, if we were honest. Some of our homes are just, they're characterized by that conflict that we have. And I believe that some of you here this morning would say, yeah, that's me. My home has a lot of dysfunction. There's a lot of tension in my home. There's a lot of strife. And what I've noticed in being a pastor and working with families and talking to people with their marriages and different things like that, one of the things that I've noticed is that in every home there is a difficult family member. Like every home has someone that's psycho, right? Everybody have a family member that is psycho? Just raise your hand. Yeah, hold them up there. Everybody has, in our homes, we have that one person that's psycho, and if you're there sitting there with your hand down, you're like, that's not me, it's you. Okay? You are it. You are the psycho. Okay? So just wanted you to know that. So I want to level that playing field. But for some reason, in our homes, we tend to hurt each other. And not all of our homes are like that, but I think in a lot of homes, we tend to just, even in the best of homes, we tend to hurt each other. My dad passed away a little over a year ago, and toward the end of his life, he was getting a little bit, he was battling Alzheimer, and it was challenging to try to help him and that type of thing. And so our girls helped him a lot, and I remember one time he grabbed Rachel's arm, and he had a pretty strong grip, and Rachel said, well, Papa, you're hurting me. And then he looked at her in the eye and said, well, you hurt my heart. so it was, but I think that's just a description sometimes of our marriages and our homes and our families. We look at each other and we're saying, hey, you hurt me. And it's like, well, you hurt me. and we have that in our home, and relationships are difficult. I know that there are moms here that are trying to raise kids, and there's people here maybe in a new marriage, and you have new children, and there's a mom that's trying to tell you how to raise your kids, and that's not going over well. Or your kids are always fighting. Maybe you have kids that are together. I don't know about that, but we went through a phase where our kids were just, man, I thought Rachel and Morgan were going to kill each other for a hot second there. Even today, now they just want to kill me, but teenagers, maybe you're a teenager here this morning and you're saying, hey, you know what? My parents have no clue what's going on in my life. They don't understand me. They don't get me. They don't even have any interest in me. They're always on their phones. They don't even look up long enough to acknowledge me. Maybe you're in a marriage when you're in a blended family and you're raising his and hers and ours, and it's hectic, and you're dealing with ex-spouses and ex-wives and ex-husbands and ex-mother-in-laws, and it's just a whirlwind of a mess in your life and in our culture. And maybe you're an adult here this morning and you still can't forgive stuff that happened to you when you were a kid, and you have a strained relationship with your parents because of it, and you haven't spoken, and you can't get over that stuff. Maybe your husbands and wives aren't getting along, and you're not communicating, and things are bad, and guys are doing stuff that they shouldn't, and looking at stuff and wives are talking to people, and I think we're just living in a day and age. And Cheryl and I talk all the time about just how many people that we know that are wrestling with those types of issues in their lives. And I'm telling you, if you're here and one of those descriptions hit a little bit close to home, you're not alone. We all have those situations in our lives and in our homes and our families. And so I want to talk to you this morning about what Jesus said in Matthew 5, verse 9. Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. And he said this in that Sermon on the Mount. After he came down the Sermon on the Mount, he said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." So I want to talk about what that looks like in your home. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Is there peace in your home? And if so, how does that happen? And if not, how can you make it happen? What are the things that we need to be doing as followers of Jesus Christ to make sure that we have peace in our homes and in our families and in our relationships with one another and relationships with people? And so here's the thing. When you look at that word peacemakers in that particular passage, it actually, and you do some word search on it in the meeting, it actually means, it doesn't just mean the absence of trouble. It actually means seeking the highest good. In other words, people are saying, it means, hey, I wish you the highest good. And this is counter to our culture today that we live in. Our culture is eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. And if you read a little bit further in Matthew chapter 5, you'll see exactly what Jesus said about that. Our culture, and we've raised the Bible says eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. Yeah, but Jesus said that's not really the way we're supposed to live. In other words, he took it a step further and he said, hey, if somebody smacks you on the cheek, you're supposed to turn the other cheek and let them smack the other one. And he said, if they take you to court and sue you for your shirt, you give them your shirt and your coat too. You go the extra mile. And I just wonder how good we are at that as followers of Jesus Christ. People in our culture, and I say our culture, but I think sometimes even in the church, God forbid, but we feel like we have this right to be angry over something. We have a God-given right to be offended. We have this right to be hurt. We have this right for ourselves first. What happened to me? What's been done to me? You don't know what they did to me, Trent. You don't know what they've done. And we feel like we have this right. And here's the thing. When we put ourselves first, we put peace last. Did you know that? When we put our agenda ahead of everybody else and our family and that peace. And so when we put ourselves first, we put peace last. And so we won't have peace in our homes. And it's interesting that Jesus used the word peacemakers, and he didn't say peacekeepers. He didn't say, blessed are the peacekeepers, for they will be children of God. He said, blessed are the peacemakers. And you're sitting here going, okay, what's the difference? What's the difference between a peacekeeper and a peacemaker? Anybody here this morning just enjoy conflict? Anybody? Yeah, I love a good fight, good family fight. Love some awkward family reunion or some awkward Christmas. Anybody like that? Nobody likes that, right? We don't like conflict. I have seen so many people like that they can't take conflict. They don't like it. And so here's what happens. And so here's the difference between a peacekeeper and a peacemaker. A peacekeeper will often avoid conflict to keep the peace. In other words, here's what that looks like. They're going to do whatever it takes to avoid that conflict. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to do it. I'm just going to get along no matter what. I just don't want to make any waves. There's avoidance. They'll take the long way around. They'll see somebody in Walmart. Oh, no, I'm going to go down this aisle. Whatever it takes, we'll just avoid it. We'll drive all the way around town to avoid having conflict or having to actually speak to somebody that we've got an issue with in our homes even, in our families. A lot of times, I'm sure they do it about me too, but every now and then, Cheryl and I say this, maybe I'm too transparent, but we are really not perfect at all. And so when I get all bent out of shape and stuff, Rachel has this thing that she started now, and it just drives me crazy. I really kind of want to I don't know what to do. It makes me mad because I'll be a little bit frustrated over something, and then she'll do this. She'll like, hey, Dad, here to here. Take it from here to here. Dad, here to here to here. That's what, it makes me mad. Yeah. I'm going to do that next time she needs money for a bank account. Here to here. But then Cheryl gets on one, and then what they don't do that to her, but what they'll do is they'll go like, what's up with Mom? I'm like, I don't know, she's on one, just steer clear. and we just know, like, hey, I don't know what's going on, I'm going to the chicken coop. I'm just going to hang out with the chickens today. But we avoid that conflict, and we'll do whatever it takes. Let's just see if we can make a truce. Let's just walk on some eggshells with people. Don't make a ripple. Don't say anything. Here they come. And it's just like this heavy weight. Has anybody ever been to a family dinner like that, or a Christmas or something, and somebody walked in and was like, nobody's going to say anything. We're just going to pretend like it's all okay. And we're just gonna pretend like there's no big deal. That's because peacekeepers, we just want to keep the peace at all cost. We don't make a ripple. Even our marriages. Yeah, I know he talks to me like dirt, but I just want to let him because I don't want to make trouble. Here's the difference. Peacemakers, they embrace conflict to make peace. And this is difficult. I get this. This is not easy. Nobody likes this. But when you embrace conflict, you're walking into it going, okay, look, we can't let this go on and just pretend like everything is okay forever. We have to embrace this conflict. We have to work through this. This is going to be ugly, but we need to work through it. We may agree to disagree, but we need to do this. And you know what? I'm aware of marriages right now that are probably going to die if something doesn't happen. But you know what the problem is? The husband is so proud that they can't, or the wife is so proud that they're like, oh, we don't need help. I don't need to talk to anybody. And one of the spouses is talking to us and going, hey, I got to do something. But we can't humble ourselves enough to actually embrace the conflict and say, look, it's bad, it's ugly, I know it's ugly, let's work through it. I don't know what the answer is, but we're going to seek some help. We're going to pray about it. We're going to go see somebody. We're going to invest in our marriages. We're not going to let Satan win. And I love it when I see people do that. Parents that don't even try to understand their teenagers. I get so sick of hearing, well, kids today, baloney. The same kids as you were when you were that age. Probably better. Adults, kids that are disobedient and respectful, I don't know what it is in your family or in your life, but you've got to learn to embrace that conflict and be a peacemaker, because Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers. I'm going to make some peace if it kills me. We're going to hit this thing head on. We're going to address it. Remember what I said the first week. We are not just a Christian home. We are a Christ-centered home. And when you are a Christ-centered home, when you get that right, you'll hit some of those things head on. And you'll start to work through some of that difficulty and quit just being a peacekeeper and be a peacemaker. Christ-centered home aren't conflict-free. Someone does something and you're like, well, whatever. Even in Christ-centered home, we have that. So when we're offended or somebody does something to us, or I've even heard people say, you know what, I will never forgive them. That's a dangerous thing to say. We see some people and like, man, they come crawling back on their hands and their knees if they want something from me. Many of us are thinking this message, some of us are probably sitting here this morning thinking this message applies to somebody else. Anybody else going, boy, I hope so-and-so hears this. I can't wait to get a copy of that and give it to them. No, you need to listen to it yourself. Just for this moment, do a heart check of yourself this morning and say, is this me? Am I a peacemaker? Or am I just a peacekeeper? Am I willing to do the hard things, like join a grow group, go see some counseling, go talk to somebody about our marriage, go talk to somebody about this relationship that I have with my in-laws or my outlaws, or this relationship that I have with my kids that's strained or whatever, and I've got this little grudge that I've been carrying my whole life for something that was done to me years ago. Let's take time to see if this applies. Paul had it right in Romans chapter 12, verse 17 through 18. He said this, do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. And this is the part I love. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So what do peacemakers do? I think there are a couple of things that they do. 3 things, actually. The first thing is this. Peacemakers tell the truth in love. Ephesians 4:15 says, instead, we speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ. Speak the truth in love. And when you think about that and you think about what that looks like in your family and how that, it's like, if you don't pick up your bleep, beep, beep clothes, if you don't start doing that, and it just comes out and we have these moments of conflict and we have these moments where we argue with one another. That's every home, including ours. Cheryl and I have had all kinds of disagreements, still do. But one of the things that we've learned to do is to try to speak the truth in love, not in conflict times. Don't do it, because usually when there's conflict times, that's when all the other junk comes out. Like when you're a peacekeeper and you've just done everything you can to keep the peace, when you have in conflict, then everything just boils to the surface at that time, doesn't it? Oh yeah? Well, what about this? And it's just trading blows. Here's, I remember when Cheryl and I were first married, we kind of learned, there have been learning moments throughout our marriage, I think. And one of the things that we used to do when we were first married, and it was out of fun, dating couples do this, and I still see, we're really conscious of this now when we, with young couples that we're around, we're like, you need to be careful with that. When we were out with our friends, I tend to try to make people laugh. I don't know. But sometimes I would do that at Cheryl's expense. And then she would do it at my expense. And it was just fun at first. We'd take a little jab, at each other. But then we realized early on in our marriage that we were like, hey, let's agree not to do that. Let's have that conflict, because when you do that, that really hurts my feelings. And that is speaking the truth in love with your spouse and with your kids, not in conflict times. The other things that we've learned to do, and we have this saying now, and this is just probably within the last 5 or 10 years, we've kind of learned to do this. It's like she'll say stuff, and then, because guys' brains don't register, they don't speak women. And women, vice versa, don't speak male sometimes. We just speak different languages. And so what we've learned to do at times, in non-conflict times, is talk about different things that each other do. And it's in non-conflict times. Like, we're not in the heat of an argument that we have this. But we've learned to use a phrase, and it's this. When you say this, I feel this. Or when you do this, this is the way... This is what that, you say this, but this is what I hear. And it's like, so perfect example. Cheryl will say something like, man, I would love to go to Jamaica. I hear, I've got to make that happen. And then all of a sudden I'm stressed out over finances, and she goes to Walmart, and I'm blown, like, I thought you wanted to go to Jamaica. And we get in this big fight over our finances because we're not understanding. She's like, no, that's totally not what I meant. I just want to go to Jamaica. I was like, well, I would like to go to Jamaica too. But we have that dialogue, and we begin to speak the truth and love to each other in non-conflict times. You have to speak the truth and love to one another. When you don't listen to me, I don't feel like you value me. When you raise your voice, I don't feel safe. You may not even notice, but with our friends, when you take jabs at me, that hurts my feelings. When you continue to check your phone at the table or while we're driving, I feel devalued. When you lie and it seems insignificant to you, but it's really hard to trust you. But we begin to have those conversations with each other in our families and our kids. When you do this, this makes me feel this way. And we begin to have that dialogue, and we begin to speak the truth and love to each other. So tell the truth and love. The second thing you do, and this is probably one of them, when I see families or marriages or kids or parents in conflict, this is probably the hardest thing that I've seen people overcome, and that's to say 2 words that you already know, which is, I'm sorry. I'm reminded of, I think I told you this before, Ellie Bundles, our neighbor, and I remember when she was little, she did something to a little kid, and her mom was like, hey, you tell her you're sorry, and Ellie was like, no, I not say I'm sorry. And I feel like that's us sometimes. We have this right, we've been offended, we've been hurt, something's right, and we just like, I ain't saying I'm sorry. Or we do the backhanded sorry. Have you ever seen that one? Sounds like this. Well, I'm sorry I checked that girl, looked at something I shouldn't, but you weren't meeting my needs, so I'm sorry. So, wow, wait a minute, that started out as an apology, but then felt weird. Or, I'm sorry you got your feelings hurt, you big baby. That is not it. It's not what I'm talking about. The right way is to admit to specific actions and attitudes with no excuses. You want to have a blessed home and you want to have a peaceful home, we need to learn how to say, I'm sorry. Admit to specific actions. And some of you are sitting here still today thinking, well, I don't think I've done anything wrong. Say it. Say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't understand that. I'm sorry I've not been the wife. I'm sorry I haven't been the husband. I'm sorry I haven't been the kid. I'm sorry I haven't been the parent. I'm sorry I haven't done that. I'm sorry we haven't talked about this until now when we were ready to choke each other out. I'm sorry I shouldn't have raised my voice. I'm sorry I've been totally insensitive. I'm sorry I should have called you and let you know what I was up to, kids. I'm sorry I shouldn't have dropped the cat off the roof. Those types of things. Specific. I'm not saying I've done that. They landed on all 4 feet. I'm sorry for mistakes. You know, the difference between sorry and remorse and repentance is I'm sorry is for mistakes. Will you forgive me is for sins? I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? 2 simple words that can change the level of peace in our homes and allow God to bless our homes, and we can be peacemakers. Last thing is this. It's a difficult subject sometimes, I think, when you talk about peace and strife and anger. And have you ever had a moment in your life where you've just completely lost it? Like you've completely lost. Anybody? Just raise your hand. Yeah, it's like completely lost all self-control whatsoever, and you've just lost your mind and just flipped out over something ridiculously dumb. Anybody ever done that? Just me? Yeah, okay. Happens to me often. You know, and I've wigged out over dumb stuff. And then afterwards you're like, man, what in the world? And I'm sure it wasn't, at the moment, it probably wasn't the thing, you know, like the coat hanger or the ketchup or the milkshake that was spilled in the backseat of the car or whatever it was that I lost my mind over, or, you know, whatever it was. I'm sure it wasn't that did it. I'm sure it was stuff that had led up to that. And stuff of where I've just been angry, frustrated. I think this is the important thing. I think when I've had moments like that in my life, I've had to go back to my family and say, hey, I've had to go back to my kids and say, hey, I'm sorry, I flipped out. Will you forgive me? And there have been times that I just, you know, I'm sure I embarrassed them and embarrassed my family, and there have been times that I've done that and I have felt just like a complete idiot. And I've had to go back to my family. And you know the beautiful thing about family and being a Christ-centered home is when you have that moment and you can go back to your spouse. And I've done things to Cheryl and said things to Cheryl, and we've had moments in our marriage that haven't been always pleasant. But we've also had those moments when we've said to each other, I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? And nothing is better than to have your family member say, yeah, you're good. I forgive you. I love you. That's what a Christ-centered home looks like. We'll get it right all the time. But the third thing we need to do if we're going to be peacemakers is forgive, and then there's the second part of that. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Don't make me play the song. I will do it. Let it go. If your family member has come up to you and said, hey, I'm sorry, will you forgive me? Forgive them and let it go. Don't keep score so you can bring it up at your next fight. And some of you are here this morning, and I know that you're looking at me going, well, you don't have any idea, Trent. Yeah, you're a pretty little church family. And you're saying, you don't know, my spouse has cheated on me regularly. I've suffered abuse from authority figures in my life. I get that. Some of it's not easy. But if we're going to be peacemakers, we have to allow God to work through us, enable us, and give us the power and the strength to forgive and let it go. And I've seen it happen. There have been marriages, couple that I counseled, it was ugly. Actually, when they came in, it was to my office right after I became pastor. They came in and I'd say, hey, can we talk to you? Came in, and I just immediately felt like I was swimming in the deep end of the pool. Like, I don't know how to fix this. this is really bad in a marriage. But they looked at each other and said, hey, I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? Still married today, still doing great, and God has done something absolutely unheard of in their marriage. It can happen. You can have peace in your home, but blessed are the peacemakers. Don't avoid it. Don't run from it. Head it head on and become children of God, because family is worth it as far as it depends on you. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Stand with me this morning. Father, thank you so much for what your word teaches us. Lord, I just pray that you would give us, empower each and every one of us here this morning to be peacemakers in our relationships with our spouses, in our relationships with our parents and our kids and our in-laws and our family members, and even outside of this place, even where we work, Lord, in the relationships that we have in our workplace and relationships that we have with people outside of this place. Help them to be able to see. Give us the strength and the power to forgive and to offer forgiveness. Lord, I just pray that you would help each and every one of us to be a peacemaker and not just a peacekeeper. Lord, help us to seek out, not that we want to seek out conflict, not that we enjoy conflict, Lord, but we know that we, with your power and with the right spirit and the right attitude, Lord, that we can accomplish great things when you work in the middle of our relationships. Lord, I pray that you would help us to bathe that in prayer, that we would begin to pray for those relationships, that you would begin to open doors to heal broken relationships, that you would begin to open doors to offer forgiveness. Lord, that there would be relationships that are healed through our ability to be peacemakers. Help us to do everything in our part within our ability, Lord. I pray that you would soften hearts and family members that have been hardened, people that are carrying around things forever. Lord, help us to be free from that. Lord, I just pray that you would just walk with us out of this place this morning. Help us to be engaged with one another. Help us to sharpen each other as iron sharpens iron. Pray that you would help us to pray for each other and to share one another's burdens. Help us to get engaged with a group of people that will help us carry that load, and engage with people that will pray for us and pray with us and give us strength. Father, thank you so much for your goodness today. Pray that you would help us to walk out of here and be peacemakers this morning. In your precious